Oh, great. Now back to the good old days, man. When wrestling was wrestling.
Nothing really went wrong in terms of, WCW, because, after we got the New World Order going, it really took the wrestling business, to a new level, back to the old days where people were throwing stuff in the ring and diving over the rails to beat up the bad guys. I mean, they went nuts. It was huge, and the ratings were doing like an 11. I mean, it was unbelievable, how hot it was. But it's not. The thing that happened was Ted Turner, who was a wrestling fan and always had wrestling on TBS when it first started because it was a show that got ratings. He sold out his company to some other company. I don't know if it was AOL or Turner or Time Warner. It became Turner Time Warner. Yeah, Time Warner. And when Ted sold out, I wish he would have done it different, but he gave up more than 51%. And the people running Time Warner that now owned, TBS or TNT, whatever, they didn't want sports. They didn't want wrestling. They didn't want the Braves. They didn't want basketball. So nothing went wrong. It was that WCW, due to the new ownership, got canceled. And nobody knew it. It was like a secret for a while because they still had to go for like another year because they had contracts with pay-per-view cable companies and syndicated TV companies, But it was basically just canceled by the new owners, which was a stupid mistake because it was the biggest show they had. But then that was the demise. Was it was canceled out of stupidity, but it's not like anything bad within WCW happened.
I don't know. I guess you already know I trained Bill Goldberg, Dallas Page, Kevin Nash, the Giant, Paul White, and Kevin Green, and Mongo, and all of them guys. There's probably about 80 to 100 people. And what people don't realize, the power plant was actually in 3 locations. So we eventually ended up at the office under Paul Orndorff. Jody Hamilton is the one that trained me, the assassin. So I was, and Lee Anderson actually was the one recommending me to go down to Jody. So that's saying a lot, So I felt like I just stepped in the right place at the right time, And I actually just took the ball and ran with it. It was nothing that was ever just gave to me. Back in them days, you had to earn your spot. There was no give or take or anything. So, once I started wrestling and stuff, I even the top guys, I was calling the matches for them as well. So, but yeah, I was, Jody and Ole, and I know a lot of people talk bad about Ole, but one thing about him, if you could wrestle, he would use you. They fired the Samoan SWAT team, and Ole put me and Dale, State Patrol, against the Sounders for 3 weeks in a row. I feel like I was blessed, to be at that. And yes, sir, absolutely. There's over 100 something people that I've trained in 3 locations. So,
well, basically, I'm trying to get the brain cells kicked in, but I was in the AWA, and we finally got Vern to shut it down, which we were trying to do for like a year or so before he did it. But then I got a call from Jim Hurd to come to WCW, and a hell of an offer. So I went, great. So I wound up going down, and it was, I'm thinking 1991-ish, maybe. Well, yeah. I mean, it was amazing. It was a time when, like, the business was like, Ted Turner was in his basement printing money out of a machine, and there was a bunch of guys that kind of lucked out, but they were giving each other, they were giving the guys big contracts because they didn't want them going back and forth between the WWE and WCW. So both promotions started giving contracts, which years before there was never any contracts. It was a pretty brutal business. There was a 2-week notice, and if you got hurt, see ya. It was. Well, you know what? It just cracks me up because I'm remembering some things. and the contract and the big money giveaway started before Eric and Watts. In fact, you mentioned Ole Anderson, right? Ole Anderson, in the early 90s was in there in WCW at the beginning. And he was pulling his hair out. Because when I got there, I remember him saying, tomorrow night we're in Albany. Just drive down 75 South. You'll see a big white building with an empty parking lot. Because none of the guys were over at that time. The business was kind of in a slump. So he called it, you'll see an empty parking lot. That's where the show is. And he's pulling his hair out because he's, giving these guys big contracts. And I said, well, why? They're not drawing money. I came from a time where you had to draw money or you didn't eat. It's a difference. And here's what Ole's answer was. Ole told me that because, Ted Turner wanted WCW to be big, that he put a bunch of money in it. And Ole's boss, from the TBS business side, because Ole used to talk to this guy. God, I can't remember his name, damn it. But he was the TBS boss guy, under Ted over Ole. And Ole would said, why are you giving these guys so much money? And the guy's answer to Ole was, Ole, if I don't get rid and spend all this money, I'll get fired because they won't think I'm doing my job. No, that was the answer. I mean, Ted wanted to just print money and give it out and do whatever, and this guy's job was to make sure the money was spent. And if the money wasn't spent, if the money wasn't spent, he said, I'd get fired, and he wouldn't think I'm doing my job. Yeah, God, I'm trying to remember his name.
You remember
his daughter worked for the company. I can't remember his name, damn it. It's a long time ago.
Yeah. I was going to chime in and say, it went through a booking committee. Dusty ran it for a while. So there, I mean, I've actually been to a TV taping up in South Carolina, and it got canceled because there wasn't enough people there. And that had to cost a fortune, I just think that the suits at WCW at the time, they thought it, it saved Turner at one time. That's when it was Georgia Championship Wrestling. And Ted just had the billboards going on, right? So that's why he hung on to WCW and wanted to, NWA then. Anyway, and I just think they got to thinking, well, why would we spend this money when we could just put a movie in, And at the beginning of the end, when Ted got bumped down on the roster, so to speak, and kind of lost control of everything. So, I wrestled for Jody at Deep South for like 3 years or so. I only trained 3 months, and I had my first match on TV, which saying a lot, you know. We also, we also lost Bill Wilkes. All of them were in week, you know. So yeah, and he went back and forth, you know. He's a great football player and just a class act. And Larry has always been a class act. I watched him in AWA before I even got into it. No, I really didn't know. That's what I said. I just had to take the ball and run with it. You know, I was never appointed to that position. You know, I was actually in production. I built rings. I made 4 video games with EA Sports in Vancouver. Stan Hansen got us over in Japan, which is saying a lot because, you know, Stan don't help anybody if you can't tote the mail. So, and there ain't nothing like being in a ring in Japan with Stan Hansen, Terry Gordy, and Dr. Death Steve Williams, you know. So, you know, Stan couldn't see nothing, right? So, I mean, he takes his glasses off, he squinted. So,
he was blind.
Yeah, he was completely blind. And you got to take that lariat, you know, you got to take that lariat, and you're going, I hope I don't die, you know. So, and then Andre, you know, I actually worked for him over there, too. By then, he was deteriorated. And, you know, when he'd go drop an elbow, he had to lean, get some ropes and all that. But, man, he was such a big guy. You know, they talk about light, but you know, Andre was definitely. Well,
he was a true giant. Yeah, he was. You know that movie he made, The Princess Bride.
Yes.
At the end, when they showed Andre riding away on the horse, it wasn't Andre. They had to use a stuntman dressed up because the horse couldn't carry Andre.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, and I didn't know Andre well because Andre was what you would call a novelty in the business. He'd be in this territory for a month or so, and then another one, and then a different one in Japan. But I traveled with Andre a lot in Japan, and he loved to play cribbage. So we'd be sitting on the bullet train for a few hours, and me and Andre would play cribbage. You know, and had a good time. But he was a good guy. I mean, I didn't hang out with him much, but he was a good guy. And it was funny because you'd watch Andre get off a plane and he'd be walking down through the airport. And there's, you know, people coming at him, you know, and there'd be 50 people or more walking past him the other way, but they would never look at him. As soon as Andre walked past them, people would stop and then turn around and look at him from behind like, oh, my God, what the hell is that? But they wouldn't do it when he was coming at them.
He had to be the most uncomfortable guy in Japan to ever. Could you imagine him trying to sleep on a bed over there?
Oh, God, you're trying to get in a room.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's an interesting story because they called me. They wanted me to come in and wrestle. From the AWA, I still retired the belt, I guess. And they brought me in. I wrestled a little bit, but then they teamed me up with Arn, and we became the Enforcers. And me and I was never like really into a tag team guy. I like being a single. But I was like, 40, 41 years old, maybe at this time. I hadn't been wrestling 20 years. And when they teamed me up with Arn, me and Arn clicked. Arn was, great in the ring. He got over with the people. When me and Arn teamed up and walked out of the dressing room, the crowd acted like they were back in the 70s. I mean, it was like, the crowd popped. So me and Arn clicked good as a team. And I enjoyed, working with him and traveling with him. He was a fun guy. We had a good time. And the interesting thing is, I never planned ever to be a color commentator or an announcer. Well, here's what happened, because Bill Watts was in at the time, or he came in when me and Arn were the Enforcers. And he started. I mean, the enforcer should have been gone a little longer. I would have liked it. It was over, but he started a group. It was, like it was me and Arn and Bobby Eaton and Rick Rude and Stunning Steve Austin, the Dangerous Alliance with Paulie, and I didn't like the group thing. And I didn't like, and Bill Watson, I didn't care for the way he did stuff. His idea was everybody over 40 should just get beat by Eric Watts. So, so what I did was when they started the group, the Dangerous Alliance, I went, oh, my knee hurts. So I got my fourth little knee scope to clear out some cartilage tears, right? So I was home for a couple months rehabbing and got myself out of the Dangerous Alliance group. And while I'm sitting home, I get a call from, God, I can't remember some names, one of the executive producers that said, hey, Larry, can you do us a favor? Jesse the Body Ventura quit. And can you come down and voice over a couple of pre-tape shows for the syndicated markets we got? And I was sitting home a couple months rehabbing, getting paid, and went, yeah, hell, I got a house. I'll come down. What the hell? So I went down and voiced over a few shows in his little room and voiced over the shows. And this guy came running in afterwards, and he said, holy shit, you're the greatest announcer we ever heard. Do you want to do the color commentating? We'll give you this much a year. And it was like double what I was making wrestling. That's when the 1 day a week for a ridiculous amount of money started. And I was thinking, I said, well, hell yeah. So, I was like 42 maybe. And the broadcasting, it saved my body, thank God. And it also got 10 years of broadcasting, gave me a connection with 2 or 3 new generations of fans, because... So it worked out great, but I never ever planned to do that. But it just worked out so good, I couldn't pass it up.
Somewhere around there, I ended up wrestling for NWA, WCW for 22 years. So, okay, they did approach me. This is for Tough Enough or whatever that show was called that they tried to do. It was silly. But Vince offered me a deal to come up there and move to Connecticut. And, I just, even if you got a contract with Vince, I mean, it's null and void, he could do anything he wanted to do. So I basically just turned it down because I was going to uproot my family, on a word and, all that stuff and move to Connecticut. And then he'd turn around and fire me 3 weeks later, So I did get the offer, but I didn't go. I chose to stay here with my family and stuff. I don't remember now. It was a pretty good deal. I mean, it was a good deal. He actually wanted something close to the power plant then, but, that's water underneath the bridge, but, even now, Vince lets the guys go, I mean, left and right, I hear all the time that, and then they jump to AEW, and, look at the White, he had run WCW and, yeah. I think
go get him, Sarge.
Cody Rhodes, I mean, look at everything he's done, man. Now, he's like a damn movie star, but God bless him, I wrestled with his brother, all over the place, Dustin, all over the place before he went to WWE and did whatever he was going to go dust and all that stuff, but yeah, I did a podcast not long ago to UK, Scotland, and Ireland, and I didn't know what I was getting into, but it was about 2.5 hours, man. I was like, oh my God, but well, it's okay, anything for the business, But uh, uh, but yeah, that's after I did that interview is when I started watching AEW, and yeah, I mean, I watched it last night, Wednesday. Yeah, that and they started off with a 8-man tag. Man, I mean, they were jumping everywhere. But anyway, it don't matter. But I think if they, I think they're beating Vince. I really think they are. I think Vince.
I'm not sure yet. I mean, to be honest with you, I really hardly ever see any AEW. I haven't been to the performance center in like a year and a half with the COVID pain in the butt, but that's like 6 miles from my house. So I got a good relationship with the WWE, and they're right down the road, and I might get more involved in helping out some of the guys with their classes and stuff. But every Monday I watch Raw with a friend of mine who's one of the coaches, so we know what's going on. And then Tuesday I'll watch NXT because I haven't watched it for a while, so I'm trying to watch it to see what new guys they're bringing up and trying to work on. So by the time Wednesday comes, I really need a break from wrestling. I watch so much. I really, to be honest, I really haven't seen hardly any AEW. I mean, like Sarge said, 8-man tag. Sometimes I'll click on it or fast forward. But every match, there's a lot of 8-man, 6-man, 4-man. There's always a whole bunch of guys flying around and flipping and bouncing. But I really don't know who most of the guys are. And I really haven't, got into it, to be honest with you. Yeah, well, it's fun, but that's the thing. I mean, it's fun going down once in a while because it's close and I can help out some new guys I think will make it, but I'm not involved where I have to fly to a different city every week and, get back in the grind and doing that. And then once in a while, I'll fly out and do an autograph signing at some convention, or something. So it's like, well, you know what? I mean, when I was young and doing it, I loved being on the road in one way because it was a freedom. You weren't involved in the world system of the rat race, 9 to 5, suit and tie, sitting in traffic. You lived a different life, kind of the life of a rock star or a movie star, TV celebrity. And so you lived a different lifestyle. And I got a private pilot's license. So I used to fly myself a lot of nights up and back to the towns. So it was kind of a freedom from being, stuck in the rat race of the world. And with that pinch of celebrity, but that was great. Well, yeah, because I was so tired of I was sick and tired of sitting in a car all day or all night. So I start flying little planes, But when you're young but then after, 40 years of that, now the idea of flying around every week is like old news to me. To a young guy, it should be great. Well, I got nowhere to go now. Back in the old days, I flew, I deducted it, and it cost like $40 an hour to rent a plane, with the $180 or $50. Now it's probably $200-300 an hour with the price of gas, and God knows what it costs now. And I got nowhere to go, so. And it's hard to get in them little planes at my age.
Well, the funny thing about that is, Larry, you remember Janie Eagle, right?
Oh, yeah, I remember Janie.
Well, she used to book my hotels for me. And, I didn't live the lifestyle of the Ric Flair and all that kind of stuff. I'd have me booked way across away from everybody. Sure, when Flair was buying drinks and buying food, I went down and took advantage of that. But then I went back to my room so I could get up next day and go to the gym. And stuff, but Jamie was a big help to me over the years, and I think she lives in Texas now and running a movie theater or something. But I went down XFL when they were trying to take off, and I actually drove the ring down and stuff, and of course I broke rings and all that kind of stuff people don't know about, but you know, and they're all. You remember WCW? It was out of Douglas fir. It wasn't a damn metal bouncy ring, you know. Yeah, it's just it's night and day difference, you know. But you know, she helped me for, you know, staying away from trouble. You know, I didn't want to get no trouble. You know, I didn't want to get no fight. But man, I've been in a bar, and the drunkest guy ever would go over and pick a fight with me. I could never figure it out. You couldn't go mess with Ric Flair, Kit Buster Great. Kit Buster Great. And you would go over and mess with me. I could never understand that. Why a drunk person would think that.
You know what? I'm proud to say this. I never drank my whole life. I never drank alcohol when my whole adult life. I think it should be illegal, to tell you the truth. But so I never went to the bars. I never went to the bars after the shows.
Yeah, like I said, I only went when Flair was and stuff. You know. Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm right here. Angelo, how you doing? This is a guy that was on the card with Larry Zybyzsko on a couple occasions. I want to know, how do I get my first class ticket to Larry Land? He's been ducking me for too long now.
First class ticket.
Yes, it is.
Philadelphia. The name's vaguely familiar. Was that a while ago?
Yeah, Larry, how you doing, bud?
Well, I'm doing good, but God, that had to have been a while ago.
Well, the first time I met you was in Trooper, PA at an autograph signing. I had a table there set up. I was with a company at the time, and you were there. Dusty Rhodes was there. Virgil was there. Blue Meanie. And I got a picture with you there. And then I was on the card with you. I didn't wrestle you. You wrestled a guy named Demetrius Arion that night. And we were in Wellsboro, PA.
God, that must have been many moons ago. Yeah. I mean, and there was a bunch of them. I can't remember them all.
Well, I heard you were going to be on the show, and I wanted to call up and see how you're doing. And the one question I always ask you when I see is, how's your handicap?
Well, the handicap ain't bad. I mean, I will confess, I moved up. I moved from the pro tees, the back tees, up to the regular men's tees, because I can't swing as loose as I used to.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, I've been so lucky. I think I'm the only wrestler my age I know that has no artificial parts. So I've been really lucky. Yeah.
Well, Larry, I just want to say, Again, it's an honor to speak with you. And again, I grew up watching you and watching you wrestle with Bruno, and and watching you when you were down in Texas and the whole 9 yards.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. And Sarge, I hope you're doing well. It's an honor to speak to you.
It's an honor to speak to you too, sir. So
Okay, look, I'm gonna clear the line so other callers can get in, and guys, it was great speaking to you. Take care.
All right, yeah, have a good one, buddy.
Can you hear me? No, really, because right now I'm on my phone because as we're going to do this, my internet crapped out. So, yes, I do. Oh, Sarge,
yes.
what is your opinion on storylines in professional wrestling?
Well, back in the day, sure, we got our finish, but I mean, we called it in the ring on the fly, even on TV. Nowadays, I don't know, and I'm not trying to knock Vince or nothing. I'm not here to do that or knock anybody. But up there, I don't know how they can remember all the crap they're being told. Because they got writers and all that kind of stuff, and then Vince will step in at last minute, change everything. But I'm sure that's happening in other sports too. But back in the day, and Larry can verify this for me. Back in the day, I mean, we got our finish. I remember in Japan, we got our finish on tape recorder. And you didn't know if they could speak English or not. So. Unless you hit them hard enough, and which I did. I've been known to be stiff, but that's the way I was trained, and I never veered off of that, And I think what made the power plant so great, was that, I trained them just like I was trained. So, but anyway, I don't know how they follow the storylines because of how everything's formatted and everything these days. Because back in me and Larry's days, I mean, yeah, we got it finished, but we called it in the ring on the fly, TV. Well, there was always a speculation that he was getting paid double from WWE and WCW. To draw our ratings down, and it was his idea to turn Goldberg into a heel. I don't know if you remember that, but Bill, I think that was the worst decision ever. But I like Vince. I mean, I always got along with him, and stuff. But I know that was the speculation at the time, and a lot of people didn't like him. So, but I wasn't one of those guys. I know Bill didn't like him. Especially, when he's sitting through that fence, the case, and
I sure do.
Okay.
Well, you know me, and I'm often imitated, never duplicated. So, all right, Larry, the Monday Night Wars, did that hurt wrestling or did it make wrestling better?
Well, it made wrestling better and huge. I mean, the Monday Night Wars, because wrestling kind of, it's like every other business. It hits a peak, and then the programming, gets to be, used up, so it's got to be reinvented. Just like TV shows, you love them, you watch them for 4 or 5 years, and you go, God, that's my favorite show, but isn't there another show on now? Because you've seen it a bunch. But when the wrestling wars started, it was, something brand new for the first time ever. And the ratings wrestling was doing was like an 11. It was, we crushed, football and basketball and every other sport. So, it was probably the hottest wrestling ever was, and maybe the hottest wrestling ever will be. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. So, Sarge,
yeah.
being the head trainer for WCW, I've heard a couple stories about how you work people and you made them violently sick.
Yeah.
Was it your? Did you have to do that, or was it a power trip because you were the head?
No, it wasn't a power trip by no means. I mean, I trained people just like I was trained, and back in that day, yeah. I mean, I talk to people. I tell them exactly what they're doing, everything, every aspect of what they're going to expect. So if I tell you everything we're going to do, and you show up and you're not in shape, that's their fault. Because I've been challenged in Hindu squat contests. I did 1,750 in a row by one of my students, but other people wouldn't sit down. They knew what was going to happen. But it wasn't a power trip by no means on my part. Yeah, I've heard some bad stuff talked about me, and that's okay. Life is life. But no, I mean, over the 3 places that the power plant was, I mean, I've trained over 100 and something people that made top money in the business. So, so how could you say right? And that's why it was. Well, that was what the power plant was all about. I mean, and then once I started working with the guys, and and it was a 3-day trial. Sure, we have 25 or 30 guys. I mean, military, all aspects. I mean, I trained Mongo, Kevin Green, Bill Kazmaier, but anyway, it wasn't no power trip by me. It was what it was at that day. Today, you go to these performance centers and they're like pampered, the people. So, and you had to earn your spot back then. These days, I don't know where to get it from, but but yeah.
Well, you know what? I mean, when I watch it, the thing that's kind of missing a little bit is, I mean, if you look at the guys in the ring, they're really amazing athletes, and people don't realize how great shape you got to be in to do this. And they're amazing athletes, and they're doing amazing things. They're hopping up to the top rope and then doing 2 backflips and landing on guys. And they're also doing ridiculously dangerous stuff, flipping off the top turnbuckle, crashing through 2 tables on a guy, and crashing through a steel ladder and bending it.
Yeah,
so,
I saw that on TV. Well,
yeah, I mean, but the thing that's missing is you got, both guys in the ring, and they're both doing really phenomenal stuff and amazing stuff. But I'm looking at it and I'm going, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy? Because they're both like doing great stuff. How can you hate someone if they're doing great stuff? So I think the good guy, bad guy thing's a little missing.
It's missing. And then telling a story in the ring is missing, Well,
yeah. Well, that's what makes the guy a bad guy or a good guy, the story. That's what makes the good guy and the bad guy. Right now, they're all like the same. They're all great,
Longevity is not going to be there. They're not going to last as long as me and Larry have lasted. Crashing through tables and all that stuff, and what did a hold, man? Sure, I'd lock up the guy, go around behind him, waist it, take him down. You sit out behind me, and I sit out. I can't get away. I go to the ropes. You tell the story while you're wrestling. Sure, I'm the bad guy, but I can wrestle. But he can out wrestle me. That gives you a reason to what? Cheat behind the referee's back. But everything's done in front of the referee now. So that's truly what's missing, the storytelling of the whole deal.
Oh, gosh, it's over already?
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, and Angelo, anytime, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, good night to you, and good luck, Sarge.
Thank you, sir. I love you, man.
Love you back. We're the boys.
Exactly. Thank you, guys.